Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing a first look at the game Fall of Berlin, the end of the Thousand Year Reich. This is from the Russian Front series by Michael Taylor, and this is the second game in that series, and this one is published by Legion War Games. And it comes in a baggie. I already kind of took it out of the baggie to kind of make it easier and quicker and more succinct, because there's no real back cover here. We just have a cover sheet, right? And then you get right into the components of the game. It does, as I said, come in a Ziploc, which saves space. I don't really mind Ziplocs that much as long as you can store them in a way that keeps the contents safe, because boxes obviously do that very well. When things are kind of loose in a non-rigid container, things can get, a little warped or crushed or things like that. Here is the master sequence of play for the game. So we can take a quick look at this. I'll actually pick it up so you can see it a little better. So you have your initial phase, which is for the Soviet player only. This is a two-player game, by the way. Initiative. Oh, you can play three-player as well because of the two different Soviet fronts. So the Soviet players roll 1d6. High score performs all activities in each phase during the turn. German player turn only. Schicklgruber, if he's still in play, award the German player one victory point, or if it is still in play, I should say. Berlin isolated. Check for isolation. Flip the Berlin isolated marker if necessary. Award the German player one victory point if Berlin is not isolated starting on turn 2. Demoralization loss, roll for initial losses, right? Reinforcement phase. Phasing player gets to put their reinforcements out, and you mark any reinforcements that will use OP movement or OP movement. Movement phase, right? So your phasing player is going to bombard, then mark their units that are going to use OP movement. Move your on-map units, move reinforcement units out of sector units. They must attempt to move back into their sector. German player only can pull up some heavy tank support. He may create he or she, I should say, heavy tank support unit. And they can merge, at the end of the movement, support unit may merge back into Müncheberg Panzer 20. Combat phase, you resolve bombardments, assault, declare attacks, assign air support for the Soviets only. Artillery for the Germans only. Calculate odds ratio, apply column shifts. Find an odds ratio greater than 5-1 is resolved on a 5-1 column. So that's as big an advantage as you can get. Roll the die, adjust for any DRMs, and apply the result. Then you get end of phase. Soviet player will do a check for LOA and award victory points to the German, Soviet and or German player. Then the end of the German player turn. You have Berlin captured in the basic game by turn 7, Berlin captured in the extended game by turn 9, which means all hexes captured. Check LOA conditions on the 25th of April and LOA 2. Advance the turn marker and check victory conditions, right? Base game's turn 7, extended is turn 9, total victory points. All right. Here is our turn effects chart, TEC. You can get a quick look at this. Right, we got units. There's Berlin, a slice of map here. Right, and of course you have your terrain key there, and you can see some of the outside Berlin areas. Frankfurt an der Oder. There, and then your unit types, of course, and the colors. You've got guards, SS, police, and Luftwaffe. Single-sider. We have this guy here, which has your CRT on it. It's pretty standard. You see your odds columns there, running from 1 to 3 to 5 to 1, and your DRM lists, result lists, and then your bombardment and assault table is down here. That is also single-sided, as you can see. Then we have 2 copies. Actually, no, it's just 1. But you have your basic game victory point chart and your Zhukov versus Konev victory point chart for when you're playing the 3-player game, where one Soviet player is Zhukov, the other is Konev. Right? And then here we have the extended game victory point chart, which is the same thing, but for the extended game, and also has the 3-player victory point chart for determining the Russian side. Victory point tracking sheet. Right? So this would be something you would probably photocopy. It is cardstock, so it's sturdy. And you have your Zhukov versus Konev scoring and an example of how you score it on the bottom there. And we have our rules. Okay, I'll take a quick spin through the rules here for your benefit. All right. So you have your list of components, setup info, stacking. Only friendly units may stack, and up to 3 units may stack in a hex. Up to 1 garrison unit can stack freely. The heavy tank support, Schicklgruber HQ, garrison unit, and air support markers don't count. Okay, you can pass through or retreat through friendly occupied hexes, even if it violates stacking restrictions on movement and retreat. Units must meet the restrictions at the end of each phase. And as is typical, units found in excess of the unit must conduct a retreat move, which is moved by the opposing player. Otherwise, they're eliminated, and that is the owning player's choice. Okay, zones of control. You get a full zone of control. Full ZOC includes the hex and all 6 adjacent hexes. All units have a ZOC in the hex it occupies. ZOCs affect movement, combat, and retreat. And then you have your restrictions. Units in Berlin do not exert a ZOC into any adjacent Berlin city hex. Units do not exert a ZOC across fortification or prohibited hex side. All right. With the restrictions listed above, units in a Berlin hex do not exert a ZOC into any adjacent hex. They only control the hex they occupy. That's probably because of the urban terrain, would be my guess. You know, buildings and rubble that probably block the line of sight, which I assume is probably what that is simulating. Sequence of play, we kind of went through that already. Thanks to that included sheet. Then you've got your movement rules, which talks about its movement allowance, which is the number of movement points it can normally spend in a movement phase. It can move up to the limit of its movement allowance. You do have a minimum move rule, and units spend movement points as it moves from hex to hex based on the cost shown on the terrain effects chart. This is all, basic standard stuff. You also have operational movement. Again, we saw that in the sequence of play sheet. The unit may move an additional 2 movement points when moving operationally. And you have to indicate that at the start of the unit, and you mark them with an op move marker. They're only eligible if they, they can begin movement phase adjacent to an enemy unit, but it cannot move or end its move adjacent to an enemy unit, even if the hex is not in an EZOC or is a negated EZOC. Okay, so there's your rules. You can't move from enemy adjacent to enemy adjacent. All op move markers are removed at the end of the movement phase. Then we've got some restrictions. I won't go through all of that. You've got allied sectors showing American or Soviet flags to mark the general area. Minimum move. Unit may always move 1 hex. That's another one that's fairly standard, even if it exceeds its movement allowance. Then we've got zone of control stuff here. Combat rules, regular combat. It's not mandatory for adjacent units. It's conducted by adjacent units across non-prohibited hex sides. You can only attack a hex once per player turn. You indicate all the hexes to be attacked and all attacking units. All targeted hexes must be attacked. Both sides declare air and tank support if available, and then add up all the combat strength points of their units. The final strength points are rounded down and compared as a ratio, attacker to defender. Apply any column shifts for terrain and fortifications. The attacker rolls a d6 and consults the CRT. Odds worse than 1 to 3 are not allowed. Odds greater than 5 to 1, as we saw earlier, are 5 to 1. That's done after all column shifts are included. So if you have a 7 to 1 situation, you get a 1 column shift to the left, making it 6 to 1. They're still reduced and resolved at the maximum 5 to 1. bombardment, assault. Got rules for that. You've got air support rules, terrain effects, your step losses, retreat rules, advance after combat, supply and replacements, reinforcement. So you got reinforcement rules here, fortification rules, city garrisons, Soviet front sectors. You've got the two front commanders. They both wanted to be the one to capture the German capital. In the end, it was decided that Zhukov's first Belarusian front would get the task of taking the city and encircling it from the north, and Konev's first Ukrainian front would support and encircle the city from the south. You have a front boundary for the two fronts, and inter-front cooperation has some rules for stacking, defense, and attack. Second Belarusian front, some units from Rokossovsky's front are included in the game. These units operated just within the northern edge of the map. These units move and conduct combat as normal. However, they must always be adjacent to the northern map edge. Then you have your victory conditions. Basic game, 1 hex of Berlin must be captured by the end of turn 7. The extended game is all hexes of Berlin must be captured by the Soviet player by the end of turn 9. Got your extended game rules, Berlin isolation, demoralization, Allies limit of advance for the Western Allies. Then you have setup, fall of Berlin, German player setup here, Soviet player setup here. And on the back, you've got some optional rules for surrender, artillery support, 4th SS Polizei Division, Isaacen movement, tank bonus, etc. Multiplayer. And Wenck obeys his orders. Wenck was ordered to move east and reinforce Berlin. He decided this was a hopeless task and instead only moved enough units to open a path of escape from Berlin for civilians as well as for soldiers. This rule removes all restrictions listed in 10b, including the German victory points. Treat all Wenck units as a normal reinforcement. All right. And we have here a little thank you note from Randy at Legion War Games. And we have our displays here. So we have the Germans and the Soviets. All right, holding boxes. And then we have our counter sheet. So we'll take a quick look at the counters, upside down. So here you go, you've got some Germans. Some markers, etc. And we have the Soviets. These are counter errata for Velike Luki, the first game, which I played. It's a very good game. The nice thing about these games are they're small footprint, but they're good games. Solid design, fun to play, good games. I mean, I'm assuming in this case, obviously, because I have not played this yet, but I think it's a safe assumption based on previous experience. Get to look at the back of these counters here. You can see the game turn, Berlin not isolated, demoralized, etc. Reduce size of the combat units. Then we have our map. So here you have the, let me zoom out so you can see it better. So we have 2 maps, one larger and one smaller. So we'll start on this one. This is obviously a wider view of the area because the city is right here, right? And so this is the larger view, right? You've got the Oder River here. And so the Soviets, of course, are going to start on the east bank, it looks like, and they're going to push across and ultimately assault the city. You've got American forces down here at the Elbe. So that gives you an idea of the scale of this particular map. And you do have a victory point track here and your turn track as well. Then we have a more zoomed in look here. So I'll just start up at the top. You can see we have our VP track and turn track here, a box for German eliminated units, the heavy panzer support in Berlin, isolated boxes for markers. Here's a map of the city, which is a zoomed in of the other map. And then this is the main zoomed in. You can see the hexes are large. And this would be, I think, the map you would probably use in the extended game where you need to capture every single hex of Berlin. Down below, you've got, again, it's more zoomed in. I'm guessing maybe that other map is the basic game, and this map might be the extended game, perhaps. Because this one does go out to 9. Well, they both go out to 9. Not sure, but I think the hex scale is the same regardless. So maybe it's just which map do you prefer to play on? Because I think this area is generally the same as this area. Maybe side by side. Well, we've got 0100 and 0100, and then 114 and 114. So yeah, they're the same size. This is just a bigger treatment. So you have bigger hexes to put your stuff in. That's kind of a cool add-on from Legion, if that is in fact what the intent here was, which I think it is. But obviously this is the same map. You might, depending on your preference, you're moving, obviously north is this way, west that way, east this way, south. So it's turned 90 degrees from what the other map has. But you still have the city here. And, you know, here's the Elbe with the American forces there that are basically stopped. And then you have the Soviets along the Oder where they're going to, and south of the river as well, where they're already across. And they're going to push into the city. So that is going to do it for this first look at the game Fall of Berlin. End of the Thousand Year Reich. There it is. A little mess of old components here. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you'll come back and check out something else down the road. But while you're here, if you'd consider liking, sharing, hyping the video, or possibly joining the ranks of the subscribers. And while I'm thinking of it, also we have channel memberships. So I have a quick shout out for my channel members who provide a little bit of financial support to support the channel, which I appreciate greatly. But that is going to do it for this one. Until next time, I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered, and as always, happy gaming.